Hello everyone and welcome back to my YouTube channel. In this video I'm going to listen to the double concerto played by Brett Young and Eddie Chen together for their 4 million subscriber event. Today it's time for the second movement. I already watched the first movement, so today we are going to the heavenly and glorious slow movement of the Bach double concerto. Today is a very sunny day outside, as you can see maybe right here. I hope the lighting will be okay for this video. The room looks very dark. As you guys maybe already know, I have a new microphone sponsored to me by the great company Schoeps. It is a CMC-1U with a MK4 capsule. Schoeps microphones are used in professional settings such as in the Berlin Philharmonic Orchestra, where they use Schoeps microphones to record for their digital concert hall, their online platform where they broadcast their amazing concerts. So this is a top of the line microphone. I'm very thankful to Schoeps for letting me use this microphone, and I hope you guys will hear that the sound will now be an A++. So that being said, let's go into the musical content of this video, which is the second movement of the Bach Violin Concerto in D minor for 2 violins, played by Eddie Chen and Brett Young. As we have seen in the first movement, Eddie and Brett's stylistical interpretation is on a comfortable middle ground, maybe leaning a little bit to the romantic side between historical informed performance and romantic violin playing or modern violin playing. They used vibrato, of course, but they also used the typical for Baroque music swelling of the tone and giving it a form just with the bow. So let's dive into it. Okay, I have to say one thing right off the bat. The tempo of the movement is largo. Largo means that it is a very broad tempo, so it's not a fast tempo. It's actually one of the slowest tempi there is. But ma non troppo. And that means basically not too much. So you have to play slow, but not too slow. And I think this is really important. And I like the tempo choice here. It is not on the slower side. It is also written in a 12/8 rhythm of 4 units of 3/8 per bar. And this steady rhythm of the 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, I think is very important not to play too slowly. Maybe that's also why Johann Sebastian Bach wrote Ma non troppo. So long story short, I like the tempo choice because it gives the slow movement some kind of freshness. And I read once in a book of Nathan Milstein that usually or very often the fast tempi are taken too fast and the slow tempi are taken too slow. And since I read that in the book, I'm always looking out for that because sometimes it is really true. The fast movements are not to be played too fast so that they can still have some transparency, and the slow movements are not to be played too slow so that they still have a good flowing pulse. There are maybe some exceptions, but in this case we have also a hint from Johann Sebastian Bach with the ma non troppo, the tempo indication that says to us, please don't play it too slowly. Very beautiful. I myself played this movement a lot, usually with friends. It is very close to my heart music. What I want to say is this music is really not for showing off or something. It is a very simple thing, so to say. It is like all Bach's music. It is not too flashy. It's like talking. It is more like telling a story, a true story, than a science fiction movie or something. It is really down to earth. I think it's maybe the best choice of music for Eddie and Chen to play in this 4 million subscriber event, because it's a music where you can reflect so much and you can see that they are both enjoying playing it and they are also very aware of the moment and of the importance of the moment, and this music and especially this movement gives them plenty of room for all those moments to really breathe through the music and all those emotions which come up in that moments. Very great, very great. Maybe for that place, I'm going to be the violin teacher now. I always love to play this place on one string. That means in that case that you would go into the second position, which Eddie and Brett both didn't do right now. Especially in the first violin, you could start this passage from the A. You can play almost the whole place in the second position. So you start in the second position. And you're still in second position and you have reached the highest note. You don't have to make a string change to the E string, which I find is a thing which you should avoid in that place, because then you have the two different tone colors. I saw that fingering here with Eddie. I think the second position is in this case really great, because you can avoid that plain steel E string sound, which also doesn't fit too well in the Baroque music. And when you want to do that, you play second position. You can go down with the chromatic step between the E flat and the D. So Brett played their first position, and I think this is totally viable. And also he started with the open string, which is very interesting. But my point is not really he should start in the second position. I start there in the second position because for me it's more comfortable. It's comfortable because I can stay on the D and the A string for the entire passage, and I avoid playing on three different strings for one melody, so to say. So he has to go for the F natural to the E string and then back again to the A string. But he does that very smoothly. So I wouldn't say that is a big problem. I just say sometimes, especially in Bach's music, you should look out for the second position. I think Bach was a really great violinist, and some passages are clearly written for the second position. And if you have played a lot of Bach solo works, you find many of those places where you can't really avoid the second position. So he must be really fond of the second position on the violin. And I think it is found in this music as well. It is clearly written for violin, and it is clearly written sometimes for second position. Still, they play on great instruments, and for the ears, it didn't really hurt that he did this string change. Yeah, and the same goes for Eddie's part. I think he could have gone there in third position just to avoid the changing of the string to the E string. Also, the following part is really good when you play it in the second position. Again, great tempo choice. I really love the tempo. It's very flowing. Sometimes it's easier to play a little faster, and still it is not too fast. Really great tempo choice. This is very interesting. In these places where we have three slurred and three separate notes, it is very common to use a different bowing than Bach has written, which is that we play the separate notes portato, like up, up, up. That is a very usual adjustment which violinists make in these kind of passages in the second movement of this concerto. But Brett didn't opt for that. So when he plays that, he plays like... So So he plays this separately, which is, I think, very beautiful, especially in combination with the very flowing tempo. It's really giving attention to every note. Really great sound. It's the kind of sound which remembers me to Maxim Vengerov when he plays Baroque music like the chaconne. There's a very beautiful recording of Maxim Vengerov playing the chaconne on YouTube, I think. And he plays on a modern violin, but with a Baroque bow. He has a very good taste when it comes to those kind of things, combining the modern instrument with the old music and the old style, because he really plays both sides very well. Of course, he's an enormous technician on the violin, a virtuoso, so to say, and still he plays music like this with this humbleness, so that he doesn't use his broad vibrato, his big sound. He plays with this very smooth sound and a very careful vibrato, but not without vibrato in every places, because he knows he's playing a modern instrument and you have to warm up the sound a little bit, because we have the synthetic core strings and the steel E string, which has a little bit rougher sound or a little bit more cutting sound than the gut strings had. I think the sound of Twoset Violin in this concerto is very similar to this approach. Maybe they also played it for him and he gave them some tips. I also think it's a very good taste to play like that, because you don't want to go to the extreme sides of both worlds. Most of us, we are modern violinists, so to say. We play modern instruments because of the comfortability of synthetic core strings, which doesn't change their tuning always when you have a temperature change of 5 degrees or something. And also we don't play the old bows, and most of us don't have two setups to change between a Baroque setup and a modern setup. Also you have to get adjusted to the Baroque setup. Of course the bow is shorter and other things as well. So I think it is a very good common ground that these kind of interpretations have. Of course you can go much more deeply into historically informed performance, and I really enjoy that, listening to that. It's like really refreshing to hear such different interpretations, and it is really amazing what kind of expressions are possible with all this Baroque setup. It is very interesting for us modern players to explore those different possibilities, which are not so much connected to a big vibrato and a big sound, but still have a very, very high intensity of expression. Okay, all is good, but there we had, again, if you remember, when I critiqued the Mendelssohn Concerto of Brett, I critiqued a little bit his shifts, which are, to my ears, a little bit too loud. And here is another place where I think the shift is a little bit connected with a bow movement, which makes the shift louder. He has a good precision in his left hand, but something in his shifts is connected with the bow, which is a very common thing as a violinist. I heard that with great violinists, and sometimes it can be a stylistical element. But especially here in this music, which is so fragile, to my ears it stands out a lot. Let me listen to that again. This whop whop. It is a normal noise to make on the violin. It's a shifting noise. But you can also prevent it a little bit. You can go much more careful, especially regarding the bow, into the third position at that place. And not do like... I'm exaggerating. I just wanted to show you what I hear a little bit there from Brett. Interesting, in this eighth notes they just played, they opted to play portato in opposite to the 16th note places I talked about before. Yeah, you can do that, but you can also play those separately. You have time there, the whole world is open. Again, interesting choice of fingering, which Brett uses right here. To me, this place is again a place where we can maybe see what a fine violinist Bach must have been. This place, he played with open string, the open E string a lot. And so on, which he makes it sound really nice. And I think open strings are not something you should avoid in Baroque music. But the open E string is a little bit different, in my opinion. When we look at that place, we could also, if we are experienced in the second position, see that most of it can be played in the second position. So we can start like second finger already. That would be, for example, a fingering that I would prefer. You can also go to the open A in the end, but playing all the starting melody, second position, second position, first position, third position. And why I go there in third position is because I don't want to change that. I don't change to the E string. I want to stay on the A string for the similar sound. So if I do the opposite, if I change to the E string, I always have this different tone color. So again, I present you my fingering. Or to the open A, as you like in the end. I think Bach's music is full of possibilities when it comes to fingerings. And I have very strong opinions about fingerings in Bach's music, which somehow form my style of playing, especially the solo Bach pieces. And also from playing solo Bach pieces, I had those ideas and those moments where I find, oh, the second position is really something which makes Bach's music and sometimes the melodies easier to understand and more beautiful to play, because you can stay sometimes on one string where you would have a string change to the E string or a big shift to the third position in other cases. I'm used to repeat my points as a teacher. I think you got the point right now that I look for places where I can play second position to avoid string changes, for example, or make a melody sound more uniform in terms of tone color. Very beautiful. I'm very much looking forward to Eddie's performance of the Paganini Concerto. Of course, this is technically a different story. I really like his musicality, his control over his vibrato. I think he has also very strong opinions about music. You can see that in the Twoset Violin videos. They are very in touch of what is something you should do in music and what you shouldn't do in music. And of course, in their videos, sometimes they play it. For example, they play Bach in the style of Brahms, and then you have to guess what it is. And here you can say they know what is the Baroque style, which is today the usual way to play Baroque music. Really beautiful. It takes some control and some great technique on the violin and some musicality as well to play Bach like this. It is not easy, especially since they didn't perform so much in a live concert event in the past years, or since they started YouTube, I would say. They perform really on a high level, especially musically, also technically, of course. used the second position. Nice one. Nice one. I like that. I like that. 1-0 for Eddie. I can hear the open E string played by Brett. No problem. Still 1-0 for Eddie. Again, I think Brett again played second position. Nice, nice, nice. I like that. Not changing to the third position where it's not necessary and using your fourth finger. And I have just to say, this music is so beautiful. I like this dissonant moments where the music intensifies. This goes up and up and up from now until a very big culmination where the second violin again goes back to the beginning. It's one of the most beautiful pieces of music ever written, in my opinion. Now the dissonance. Beautiful, just beautiful. This is such a heavenly moment. I have my hairs, I don't know if you can see, I have goosebumps. I'm so in love with this concerto. What I also like about this performance is that in these places the tempo is helping the music go and go, because the harmonical tension is so big. If you now would enforce that with a rubato, for example, I think it would be too much. The beauty in Bach's music, most of the time, in my opinion, is that you have those intense moments, really intense emotions, and then he says, life goes on, life goes on. And that's how it is. And that's the beauty and also sometimes the cruelty of life. It is really sometimes hard emotions. But if you're a wise man, you know life goes on, life goes on, life goes on. And you jump from one emotion and one event to another. But life goes on. It's always this continuation. In Bach's music, it's great. And you can show that with making not too much rubato in Bach's music. I think this is something which for me makes an interpretation of Bach's music more beautiful and more speaking. Let me rewind a little bit to this moment. So beautiful. The way the second violin there comes out of all this harmonic tension and also the first violin playing into the first note of the second violin of the melody. It's just a beautiful and genius moment, which Bach's music is full of. Really beautiful. I just think, I'm not very sure about that. When we listened to the first movement, I already showed you how Menuhin and Enescu played this concerto. And to me, it is really beautiful if you have a continuous sound in places like this. And so on, in opposite to doing a diminuendo on every bow. I don't want to say that Brett played it like that, but to me it is a little bit more intense if you carry on this melody, which is somehow more a romantic idea of playing on the violin. I'm very curious now how the Menuhin and Enescu interpretation sounds. here you can hear more a continuation of the sound. Of course, with a lot of vibrato, which of course is a question of taste if you want to have so much vibrato in this music. But regarding the bow use, it's much more a continuous sound, not so much a diminuendo on every note. Of course, it's not easy to play like that. Otherwise, I would. That was, I think, Enescu's playing of the second violin. Let's hear how Yehudi Menuhin enters. Oh, that was beautiful. If you would do that in modern times with Baroque music, this small glissando which Enescu made there, you would get cancelled. But such beautiful moment. Let's listen to that again. Oh my God. To me, it's difficult to make it more beautiful. Really, really difficult. Of course, you can play it in a different style with a different idea, but just from my heart, from my feelings, I think it's really difficult to play it more beautiful than those two guys, those two really great masters of the violin. And they had a very distinct style, and they had just the most beautiful portamenti. And what Menuhin just did with that melody, sliding and continuing the sound, of course, you wouldn't do that in a historical informed performance, but to me, it has something. And I just can encourage you to listen to those old masters more and more, because there's a reason why the violin is so popular nowadays, or let's say was so popular in the last century, because of those guys. Those guys knew how to play this music. And it's not that they knew about historical informed performance practice. At that time, the music of Bach was in large parts forgotten. They began to make it popular again. Musicians like those are the reason why we play those concerti today. And the way they played it back in the day made this music popular again. So there's something we should learn from these old masters as well. So let's continue with Eddie and Chen, the new masters. I think it's very clear that we are now back to a much leaner sound, much less vibrato, much more room between the notes. This is really typical for nowadays Baroque interpretation, which I think is great. When it's done well, it's great. I just wanted to put in words for you what and maybe you also experienced right now, coming from this old recording, this romantic recording, to this new recording or this new style. I'm really unsure how Johann Sebastian Bach was able to write such a music, and he has written so much great music. It's just unbelievable. And had 9 children or something. This is a typical Bach moment, I think, because harmonically it's a similar build-up to the last build-up we talked about, but it is much more calmed down already. It's like he's thinking about the same drama again, but he's already wiser. And the realization is there harmonically much quicker. So the release of the tension is there much quicker. Let me show you. Maybe I can show you. Here is much tension, more tension. And here is the moment where it already goes back to the F major part of this movement. Oh, that was a lot of vibrato. There's the proof that the fourth finger can vibrate quite well. It works. Beautiful entry there from Brett. I think they both also realized this is the last time the melody comes in this movement, and they are just enjoying the moment. There's the portato again. Interesting that they play their 3 notes on one bow when they sometimes choose to not do that with the 16th notes. By the way, the orchestra sounds also great. Really nice accompanying, also very fresh sounding and keeping the tempo very well. Of course, that goes also to the conductor, who makes the tempo, of course, together with the orchestra. So let me put that into words. That might sound a little bit esoterically. This whole movement is a story. And then what happens here is the continuation is very different. Now it's very clear that there's an ending happening right now. And then there will be something happening after that as well, which is something we should put our ears to. As I said, it's very, very much in style if you are talking about nowadays style of playing this old music. It's very much in style. So they to me, it's a little bit too much rubato at the end, or ritardando. It could be a little bit more subtle, especially because they played the whole movement in a very flowing tempo. And this long pause before the last note, to me, is sometimes a little bit. Everybody does that, and it's a little bit like too much out of the book, if that makes sense. But that doesn't take away anything from this performance. It's really a really nice, heartfelt performance. And overall, the style, I think it's very, very well. But that I talk so much about style in this movement shows to me that there is nowadays a little bit too much focus on style when it comes to Baroque music. And the beauty of Baroque music, or even not just Baroque music, also before the later Romantic period started, where we had radios and televisions, the music which was played in Russia or in Germany or in Italy or in France was really different, because you don't have the influence of a recording in your ear or someone else playing which you want to imitate. So at Bach's time, it was even more like that. You had a style in a city, and the next city, which was maybe 20 miles away, has a totally different style. And the city 200 kilometers away would have no idea what was going on in the city 200 kilometers away. Of course, the musicians teams, they always exchange ideas, but it was much slower back in the day. What the effect of that must have been, and this is proven in also the notation of the old music, is that every city or every part of the world, even though it was the same music, had its different style, its different ornaments, and I think also its different ways of playing. Which comes with that is that it is commonly much more accepted to play differently than the common opinion. And what I hear a lot nowadays in Baroque music is that there is a common opinion always. And you are so focused on serving this common opinion because you don't want to play it out of style. But I think originally you would take your personal style and you make this music your own. You just do it. This is a really romantic way of approaching music, of course, but I think it's more realistic than to say it's always done this way, it's always done this way, it has, the trills always begin from the top, some things like that, which is proven also to not be the case. It was situational and it was also different depending on the region where the music was played or came from. So I think we have to be a little bit careful in the perception of music, not to criticize too much when someone would be playing Baroque music, for example, in a romantic way. Because to me, what is the essence of the music is not hidden in the stylistical approach. Of course, it's interesting to have an opinion about that and so on. But when you play music, of course, there should be some instance above that, which is more important. And I think this is very important, that we have to put our ears in the right direction, which is the emotional content of the music, which is, in my opinion, which made this music popular again when performers like Yehudi Menuhin and Enescu played this and recorded this. So me talking about this stylistic approach has a lot to do also with this slow movement, because here you can hear a lot more of the different playing styles or interpretation styles. I think what Twoset Violin does is they follow through. They have the idea, they know how the modern opinion is, how it should be played, and they put their emotion into this kind of construct. And this is great, and this is what most musicians do nowadays, and what we also should take apart from as reflected musician. But also, I think it is never too late to listen to old recordings of the golden era of the violin, which was 100 years ago, sadly. There the violinists were the rock stars. They were the stars like nowadays, like the Michael Jacksons or the Rihannas of their time. I think it's great to have this periods of great singers nowadays or great performers, but back in the day it was really this pure violin and pure music era. And what they did, there must have been something which was right. And I think they had tremendous knowledge about music, maybe more than we have today, because they were closer to the composers of their time, which stand in the tradition of the music of Bach or the music of Mozart or the music of Beethoven, Liszt and so on. They were 100 years closer to that. And we have recording from them, and we sometimes say, oh no, that's not how you play. Oh, that's so funny. He used so much vibrato for Bach music and so on. While we are playing on steel E strings and synthetic core E strings, and while we have less of an idea how Bach would have really wanted his works to sound. There are some books, especially the violin school of Leopold Mozart, where you can read a lot of honest opinion about the performance and the style of their time, which is of course later than Johann Sebastian Bach lived. But I'm very sure that even with a Baroque bow and even with gut strings, you can produce a very romantic sound. As I said before, Menuhin and Enescu, they played on gut strings. Of course, they used the new toured bow form, so the modern bow, but they still were closer to the old setup than we are in most concerts today because of the different strings. Anyways, I'm very much looking forward to the third movement. Thank you all so much for listening and watching. Big thanks go out to Schoeps for providing me with this microphone, this CMC-1U with the MK4 capsule, which is a really amazing microphone for recording voice and also violin. I'm very sure that you guys can listen to my older videos and you can tell the difference of this microphone. As always, if you like this video, leave a thumbs up here. You can also subscribe to my channel if you are interested in more violin content. And also you can write a comment and we will see each other in the comments. Have fun practicing and bye bye.